Praised are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who gives us the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the peoples through his Son Yeshua the Messiah, our Lord.
Amen. All right, get everybody started. Joshua 14. All right, please pause before we get further started.
Yes, no, you can.
We're not all called to the same calling.
Yes.
Some of us are called to lead and do great things in the kingdom of God. Some of us are called to pray quietly in the corner and do great things in the kingdom of God. I just want a little bit cautious that not only to be called is to be great.
Auntie Sharon just spoke my Shawneese. Sorry. Thank you, Auntie Sharon. Thank you for elaborating.
Okay. All happy?
Yes.
Very good. All right, so what did you learn in Joshua 13? This is when you scan through your previous notes in the chapter before, that you can't remember. Please, right, everybody's opening up their Bible, looking at the headings in their Bibles if they've got them.
Read through the meaning of the nation's cities.
That was 12. All right, so Joshua 12, we went through a little bit of a run around with all the kings and the 31 kingdoms that they conquered, noting that there were some that were not conquered. We're obviously in a section, if you look at the split or the divide of how we broke up these chapters, you've come into the section that it talks about dividing Canaan up. Now again, this section here is about a legal document of inheritance. This is what they received. And these are the borders and things that they received. And there are a little bit of a side stories in between this. Ultimately, I'm going to summarize for you. We could basically knock this out. You could probably do like 7 chapters by putting a map on the screen. Alright? That's not going to happen today though. Right? So we can go through this fairly quickly looking at things, but there are also things that I find interesting that I'm going to point out. So today, you're going to be reading. Some of the section is going to be a little bit tedious, but you'll get through it. So we went from dividing the 31 kingdoms that were conquered to chapter 13, and it opens up with Joshua done behold. The years have taken the toll on him. The war has been going on. Now remember, how long, more or less, do you think the conquering of Canaan took? Around about. Okay, we're going to discuss that when we get into chapter 14. Okay. So the inheritance is extremely important. You know, let me summarize with that a little bit. All right, let's go to 14 verse 1. These are the inheritances which the people of Israel took to the land in Canaan, which Eleazar the Kohen and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the ancestral clans of the tribes of the people of Israel distributed to them by lot for them to inherit, as Adonai ordered them through Moshe, for the 9.5 tribes. Okay, why 9.5 tribes?
There's 2.5 tribes inside of the
Right, which 2.5 tribes?
off the top of the Manasseh.
Reuben and Gad. Okay, so remember the story? They got to that side and then they said, no, we would rather stay here because it is good and we're a cattle people and this is cattle grazing land and we're happy. For me, I get a little bit sad when I read that portion because I didn't understand what was waiting for them on the other side of the Jordan. They stopped just before. And their petition to Moshe was that we will build places for our cattle and then we'll sort out, you know, the places for us and then for our children. And Moses goes and he asks Father and he says, okay, this is the story, what do you think? So he says, no, it's fine, they can have that. I'll extend the territory for them so that they may receive it, but they will build their houses, sort out their wives, sort out their children, and then they can sort out their cattle. On the premise that they will go out full force and then they will go and fight until everybody else receives their inheritance. You don't get yours and you just lay down arms now. They're going to need you to go and stand as a unit. All 12 tribes, one unit, one God, going across and taking land off the land. And that's what's been going on.
But that would mean they'd have to leave their wives and cattle and children behind,
Yes.
unprotected.
Well, again, who's your protection? This is something that they understood. They weren't just going away. God was already saying He would establish it and then trusting it. If we say it's around 7 years for the conquest, 7 years you haven't seen your family. 7 years your houses have been there, your wife has been waiting for you to come back. And thanks to a little problem at Ai, we don't know, well, I can't remember exactly, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we didn't really, I don't know if those 36 families decide which tribes they came from. So some people weren't coming back. But he goes on to this point of inheritance. Now why is inheritance important? Why is this such an important thing for God?
It's a promise.
Promise to who?
Abraham.
Okay, promise to Abraham, then it was given to Yitzhak, then it was given to Yaakov, then Joseph carried it. And Joseph's 2 sons get a double portion in that. Joseph's sons are? Ephraim and Manasseh. Right, so they only got their inheritance, even though it was promised to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Joseph lived most of his life in Egypt, died in Egypt, comes back, wanderings, Sinai covenant, Jordan crossing, get you to this point. Now you can go. Now this is yours. A promise that was given is still established by God. Sometimes, and especially in this age, I think God gives you a word and you want to force it. God's time is perfect. The land needed to be ready for you. The cities needed to be built for you. You needed to be ready for the land. In between, God is busy working inside your heart, inside of you as a people, and establishing what He needs to have you ready for, to be able to move forward. Now, God might have given you a word. You might have to wait 1 year. You might have to wait 2 years. You might have to wait 10 years. You might have to wait your lifetime and still not see it fulfilled. That might be for your children and your children's children. But it doesn't mean that you can hold on any less to that promise. There is a plan, there is a purpose, and this is what I'm going to establish. Do you want to be part of that? Now, the inheritance of Israel, and again, who does the land belong to? God. He says, it's my land, you can stay here. Follow my laws, follow my decrees. I will live with you. I will provide for you. I will make you live in peace and be secure. Walk away and start worshipping another God in my land. Bring foreign gods into my land. And then I will remove you like the people before you. You get what I give you and you receive the blessing, but you have to obey. You cannot have the land without God. There are many, many chapters when it talks about what the borders are, what the inheritance is. And God describes this in explicit detail, painstaking detail, because this is the thing that's going to be passed on from generation to generation. Understand something. 1948 happened because of these borders. This heart, this document. What you've agreed to, and you were dispersed throughout the land. Israel came back and are now back in the land. Okay? They might not understand which tribe they all belong to, whether it's Judah or Ephraim or whatever. A lot of the stuff is very confusing. They don't understand their lineages. A lot of them now make the distinctions by 2 completely different ways. Right? You define yourself by which synagogue you go to, what not tribe you belong to. But the land is yours. Whether you're Ashkenazi, you come out of Europe, whether you're Sephardic, you come out of everywhere else, doesn't matter. You want to be in covenant with me, you want to be at my mountain, you want to walk with me, the land is yours. And the promises for the Gentiles who keep that covenant and honor the Shabbats and do the same, that land is yours. Whether He's going to establish you there now in this lifetime or when He comes and He reigns, doesn't matter. If your heart's desire is to be with your God, you will be where He will be, and that's in the midst of Him. That's in the land. This is the one thing these guys can hold on to, guys that have been doing the Sunday studies. Shemitah cycles, going to the time of Jubilee, all points to, again, redeeming you so that you will never lose what God has given you. Even if you fall on hard times and you struggle, your children will have the land, I promise you. And it stays. This carries on right the way through, and then when you start looking at Revelations and New Jerusalem and Ezekiel prophecies and all the rest of it, he's still declaring tribes and gates. This is where you're going to dwell, this is what, why? All because of these covenants that have come in. Do you choose to belong to me or don't you? Do you want to be where I am or not? And remember, the picture of Messiah in that Mishkan is Emmanuel. I will dwell with you. And then Ruach HaKodesh, as the Shekhinah comes and dwell in and among you, that's just a foreshadow of something that's going to happen at a much bigger stage much later. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Right. So it is your inheritance. Who are the people who distribute it?
The priest and Joshua.
Name the priest.
Elazar.
Eleazar. And who's Eleazar?
The high priest.
High priest. Descendant from?
Aaron.
Right. So Aaron's son. Right. Okay. Him and Joshua. Now, there's an interesting thing. When you look at the people of Israel, they took the land in which Eleazar the Kohen, Yehoshua the son of Nun. And remember, I've been a little bit pedantic about names and meaning stuff, right? Tell me what Eleazar means. You're starting to look at it, yes. God is my help. God is my help. Kohen, what does Kohen mean? Gets translated as priest, but if you break it up into the paleo, what does it mean?
And reveal.
Yeah, allowed to reveal heir, the son. So the very picture of a Kohen is to reveal Yeshua. Who is your help? Who is the helper that comes? Who gets sent? Yeah, the Ruach HaKodesh. And through that, again, he goes to Yehoshua. What does Yehoshua mean?
Something to do with salvation.
Yah saves. Yah will save, right? God will save. And the son of Nun. Nun is an interesting letter. Someone, fastest fingers first. What is the numerical value of Nun? This is where you look at your phone and you look at the chart.
You could just tell us.
No. 50. Because you got teachers.
How's it spelled? Not really.
Right. Nun has a numerical number of 50. So the son of Nun, and Nun is a representation of what? A fish. Yeah. Which fish? I'm just going to draw the Paleo Hebrew. You decide what it is. And the other one's got a little bit more squiggles. It's the seed of life, you see. The fish that swims upstream. That's all I'm saying. The son of Nun. This is also a letter. This is what a Nun looks like. It looks like a small bed. Bed? Looks like that. Right. So you have the Nun. It's got the numerical value of 50. 50 is again about the Jubilee. Oh, Jubilee. Alright, well, Yovel. Okay, and it's all talking about that which you will redeem. Yeshua's main job is about redemption. God will save you and establish you through the seed. And He will redeem you unto Himself, but it all pegs again now to inheritance. And how will that inheritance come through?
By what?
God will help. Allow to reveal the Son. So again, inheritance is that important. When he starts to break it down, you start to look at these names and what their function is and what they're trying to tell you. And he's doing with inheritance. And he wants to establish his kingdom, and what he's going to do through you and your seed was a promise to Abraham. And that seed we know is singular, as the New Testament points out, and he says he's talking about Yeshua. And he's the one that's going to graft you in, that's going to bring you into the land because of a covenant and because of a covering. Are you with me? Right.
Sorry, just a matter of interest.
Yeah.
Joshua, what tribe was he from? Was he also Levi?
No. I want to say Ephraim. Someone check me. Ephraimite. He was from Ephraim, which is ironical, isn't it? If you look at Joshua, hamsters, okay, and he's from the tribe of Ephraim, and Ephraim becomes not only a synonym for the northern kingdom of Israel, because that's where they set up their capital, but also the promise is Ephraim will become the fullness of the nations. And you people, when you go to Israel and say, I'm a Torah observant Gentile, they believe that you come from the tribe of Ephraim. So as an Ephraimite, you're a lost tribe, figuring out who you are, and you come in and you say we're Torah observant. Remember, you don't make sense there. You don't make sense either. It's a lovely place to be. So you say you're a Christian, but you don't act like that. Remember, if you go to Israel, their idea of Christianity is what? Yeah, Catholicism. Okay, whether you're Roman Catholic, Greek Orthodox, whatever you want to call it, they all look the same there. Okay? You go over there and you say, oh no, well, I'm a Christian, but you wear tzitzit, you keep Shabbat, but that's what Christianity is. No, that's not what we believe it is. I shared with you, we had a discussion with a guy who came up to us and he said, yeah, so you say Christ fulfilled the law? And he started interrogating, and I sat there and I smiled. So I says, well, you obviously know that the Hebrew word to fulfill means to uphold and to establish, and we believe he did. He kept Torah. And then he stopped and he played with his lips for a little bit, and he says, well, that's ultimately the question, isn't it? Is Torah eternal? Yes, he is. And he sat there dumbfounded, because people that were Christian, that were using talit and grabbing shofars, because we've got a bit of a problem. They think that, and they strictly forbid this, that as a Christian you're not allowed to wear tzitzit, you're not allowed to blow shofar, you're not allowed to get a talit. Why? Because you don't keep the rest of it. So don't sit there with your Easter ham and blowing a shofar while wearing a talit on your Sunday service.
Christmas Day.
Yeah, and then they go, I have no idea what's going on here, but it feels wrong, and they're right. Because you're taking something that's holy and that's belonged to them, and they understand what that tzitzit what represents, right? You will remember and do what God told you to do, but you're doing exactly the opposite thing. You're telling me it's okay because Messiah did. What type of Messiah is that? Cross-reference that to Deuteronomy 13, and Deuteronomy 13 says, no ways. If he nullifies the Torah, he's no one's Mashiach. Forget about it. Until you come along. And there's a possibility he might be now. Because he kept Torah. He lived it.
Can you just expand a little bit on what you were saying about the promise given to the Ephraimites?
It says in part of the blessings, when you talk about the blessings of Ephraim and Manasseh, it says that they will become the fullness of the nations. Now, they don't know what to do with that verse. It sounds like, and what they understand from in history, is that when Ephraim, the northern 10 tribes, got dispersed, they went out into the nations. And we see that in Acts, right? Like in Acts 2, we see Jews from Crete and Turkey and all those places. And then when Paul goes out on his missionaries in Acts, Shaul goes in the first place he steps into his way. It doesn't matter where he landed. He went straight to the synagogue, he opened up Torah and he says, let's have a discussion about this Mashiach. And that coming from Paul is ironic, right? Because he was using Torah as a guide to go against them. And he goes up and he sits and he sort of establishes that, and he goes out and he starts convincing people using Torah and the Tanakh, your Old Testament prophets, to say, look guys, here he is. And people like the Bereans go out and test him and look at the word, and they go out and guess and they check everything, and then they come to the same conclusion. And now all of a sudden you've got these guys that are out there in the nations But you've got guys like Cornelius in the land, in Acts 10, a God-fearing Roman centurion who's praying at 9 o'clock towards Jerusalem, who's giving tzedakah, who's looking after the people. What do you call him? He's not a convert. He didn't proselyte, he didn't become a Jew. But he's a God-fearer. These are your Rahabs, these are your Ruths, and later you'll see these are your Calebs. And they stand up and they align themselves so strongly, but yet they're different. They're not part of this seed, they're not part of this lineage. And that's why we have to get into the explanation of Romans about being grafted into being one group. At Mount Sinai, he says what? There will be one law for one nation, but there was more than one nation sitting at that mountain. There was a mixed multitude that left Egypt, and they went along with him. And they camped around the mountain, and they aligned themselves with God. And they said, here we are, where do we fit in? And he says, no, you fit exactly where I told you, you're part of my people. And now these Ephraimites that are going out, and they're coming in, and they're sitting in synagogues, and they're listening to what's going on. But they go, well, we're not Jewish, does this Jewish Messiah apply to us? And Paul has the fortunate news of going, it applies to everybody. God is a God of creation. He created you, He loves you, and He's going to bring you in. The fact that He was using a specific people to get that point across makes them highly honored and favored. But the point of them is to get you home. What does it mean to get people home? To redeem. To bring them back into Daddy's house. That is the point of redemption. Right? So now you guys who are being redeemed through the blood of the Lamb, coming into covenant, we don't exactly know where to fit you. So their best explanation is, you must be from the tribe of Ephraim. Because you're not a Christian. Not the way they see it. But slowly but surely, you see we've got two conundrums in Israel. Those Jews who become Christians, many of them become Christians. Not sincere, not kosher, not nothing. Don't have to worry about that anymore. And you get another school of thought, well, if you're a Jew and you convert, then you still have to stick to Torah, but the Gentiles don't worry about it. Two sons with two different types of instruction. That doesn't work in anybody's house. If you're not looking after the one and treating the other one the same, you're not going to have two sons that like each other very much. One is going to pull away from the other. It's going to pull away from you as a parent because you're unjust. You treat me differently. You're not allowed to jump on the bed all you want. Don't eat that, eat whatever you want. Even though that's killing him. That's not just. So it can't be God. So God, one household, one law. Yeshua says one flock, one shepherd. One sheep does not get the privilege of running wherever he wants, and when he wants to come and camp with the shepherd, cool, and when he doesn't, go on his own device. He doesn't make his own herd. He has to be with the shepherd and go where the shepherd goes. And ultimately that again leads us back to the Father. Make sense? Right. Okay. So, where did I stop? Okay. Jolly. Okay, so they distributed everything by lot, and again we look at the Urim and the Tumim, and sometimes there's a little bit of a, we don't know exactly how this was done because you're looking from city to city to city to city to city to, it's very specific. So how do I go, if I've got two stones that say one's yes, one no, and I say, is it Benoni? No. Is it Boxburg? No. It's going to take a really long time. I'm not saying that's not how it was done. I'm saying if it was, well, like I thought, that took a lot of patience. Right? Some of them believe that they used the stones that were engraved with, well, it was either the Urim written in and the Tumim. Some people believe it was the breastplate. Okay, with the stones named, engraved inside of it, and then God was able to pick up letters and numbers according to light. That's Jewish tradition. I cannot tell you if that's true. Right? Either way, God is in control of the borders. Right? And He establishes them. That which God has established as your land. Remember, He goes into Torah and He says, don't move the marker. I have given you this much. If I move the marker, what am I doing?
Stealing land.
Stealing land? Why am I moving the marker?
Because there's water.
Because I'm coveting His land. And when I do, I'm shrinking His inheritance and I'm claiming more for me. Doesn't end up well. Okay.
The guy who gets the most land.
Yeah, well, I'll show you now. As Adonai ordered through Moshe for the 9.5 tribes, Moshe had already given the inheritance to the two tribes and a halfway tribe beyond the Yarden to the Leviim. He gave no inheritance among them. We've discussed this before. Inheritance of the Leviim, who and what is it? God is their inheritance. Okay? Do they get cities? Yes, they do. Do they get tracts of land to keep their flocks and their herds? Yes, they do. Do they have some agricultural place where they can farm? Yes, they do. Is it enough to sustain them? No, it's not. So that covenant of salt, that covenant of loyalty is your job is not to farm land. Your job is to focus on me and help people deal with me. What does Levi mean? Right? My heart. We translate that as attached or adjoined to. How do I get someone adjoined to God? Well, I help them and I bring them into the kingdom and I show them about Mishkan and I show them about offerings and I show them about sin and I show them about stuff so they can go into the Mishkan. Physically they weren't allowed to at that time, but you know what I'm saying. They're drawing near to the Father. I'm helping you understand Him and His heart that He wants to dwell with man. This is Garden of Eden stuff all over again. His heart is to dwell with you, to partner with you, to walk with you. This is not a one-man journey. This is not an us and him moment. This is about an us, an echad between us. You as a married couple don't get, one person does not get to decide where the other one will go all the time. If you're married, you will understand this. If you want a marriage to work, when you're looking at going forward together, you understand that the two of you have to be in agreement and work towards the same goals. How are we going to establish this? Put God in the center of that marriage, saying, Abba, we're not sure what to do. Guide us. We're here to follow your call. But the two of you will have decided together to follow that call. That is the point. You are choosing to go and walk together. Okay. The descendants of Yosef constituted two tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. What does that tell you?
You received a double blessing.
Double portion. Right. Was Yosef the person? Again, if you go down the list of sons, let's go. Reuben. Who was next? Simeon and Levi. Who was next? Judah. Right. And all of a sudden we've got a whole bunch of other guys who did a whole bunch of stuff. Reuben did not get the firstborn blessing. Why? Right. Slept with one of his father's concubines, and thus again an ancient biblical play of taking control. You hurt my mother. You've overlooked her. I'm going to show you how you're supposed to do this. Right? A lot of emotional play that we don't really talk about in there. Okay? Simeon and Levi.
I slaughtered the guys after making it.
Right, Shechem. Circumcision, bad idea for you, especially when I have a sword in my hand. Right, but don't take my sister. Right? So, Judah. Why was Judah excluded?
Messiah came from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah, you see, now that's a good thing. He came from the tribe of Judah. But he never received the firstborn blessing. Judah was the one who sold Joseph off to the traders. Right? And then later we see Judah saying, take my son, establish me. I'm the one that will do that. Set Benjamin free. If he does, Benjamin doesn't go back, and that's when Joseph cracks. That's when Joseph realizes. But that which was supposed to be the firstborn of Joseph in the marriage he would have chosen if... Who was it that was supposed to take Leah?
The firstborn chosen.
No. Who was supposed to take Leah? Who was supposed to? Esau. Eh? No, Esau. Esau was supposed to marry Leah, but because she was older, guess who got to marry Bud? And then we're going to run down the lineage, and then Yaakov is going to deal with this whole dilemma, which is going to lead us to Joseph, who was whose Where did Joseph come from?
Right.
Rachel. Who did he work for? Who did Jacob work for this entire time? He worked for Laban, but he wanted to get Rachel, and then he was duped. Now we have an interesting tradition in Judaism. The groom gets to veil the bride. You tricked us once, not going to happen again. So now before she comes down the aisle, he keeps a close eye. He looks at her and then he goes, just checking. Right? And then she is able to come down knowing that he's paid the bride price for the right one. Anyway, it's very funny to watch. And like, it's so beautiful. I'm like, do you know why they do that? Okay. So anyway, we're supposed to have Joseph, the firstborn of Rachel, the most beloved wife. And because the other guys, again, formed a little alliance that they didn't like little snot called Joseph because, let's face it, whether you like him or not, he was quite arrogant in the beginning. God had to humble him and bring him down. But he was already favored. God had already told him, I'm going to use you. Now, listen up. For you who have callings, and that's 90% of the people here. The rest, the other 10% don't want to ask the question. You can only run for so long. Yeah, smart, eh? But for you who have callings on your life, God will choose you even at your worst. And sometimes you're going to go through some difficult times, but only at the end of it will you realize it was for your good. Remember, Joseph got given a coat. You will bow down to me. You will bow down to me. And then he got put in a pit. What's the one thing he lost when his brothers took it away and they used it for deception? His very thing of authority. His very thing of favor. And then he goes, he gets sold, and he gets bought by Potiphar, and he gets lifted up again, and he gets given a new coat. And then I can do whatever I want in this entire household. That's how much my master trusts me. I'm just not allowed to touch you. Look how awesome I am. And what was the one thing he left behind? His coat. And where did he go? To a pit. He was having a wonderful time. And then he started to realize, hang on a second, this authority is given to me for his glory, not mine. And he gets lifted up, and then at that point, he gets put down twice so that he can be lifted up. Do me a favor, learn faster than Joseph. Learn faster. You do not have to get put in a pit. Yeah, you should have learned the first time. Guys, it's a very honest book for a very specific purpose. This is what he likes and this is what he doesn't like. He's trying to build you up. He does not have to break you down. But in your stubbornness and in your arrogance, he will, if he wants to use you, and he's going to have his way, he will break you down. That's not to destroy you, that's to give you a future. Because look at Joseph's life. He would have inherited his father's kingdom. And they all would have died. Right? Big famine in the land. Who would have prepared? Good job. That's what would have, your kingdom would have done then. Done. But God made a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be your God. I'm going to take care of you. And I will use even the arrogant, little, brash one who seems to be the least but thinks he's the most. To be lifted up out, to be prepare a place. The point of Joseph was not just to be a Messiah type, but also to prepare a way for Israel to survive. That's a collective victory, not an individual one. People look at Joseph and they go, wow, what a guy. What did God do through Joseph just so Yaakov would live? And his sons and their sons to be able to become a nation, to be able to take a land because of a promise he made to Abraham and Isaac. Don't individualize your calling. It is not about you. It is about you. And the longer you take to get ready, the more this has to wait. The more this has to struggle. Running does not just hurt you, it hurts everyone. Use it, don't use it. Anyway, back to Manasseh and Ephraim. So they receive a double portion. He gets the firstborn blessing, or the double portion. And they gave no portion to the land to live in, except the cities to live in, with the open land surrounding them for their livestock and their crops, as Adonai had ordered Moshe, so the people of Israel did. They divided the land. The descendants of Yehudah approached Joshua and Gilgal. Isn't that amazing? You've taken out cities, you've taken out towns, you've taken up everyone, you've conquered the northern coalition, the southern coalition. God stopped the world from spinning, everything goes on, and He takes you right back to Gilgal and He says, sit by daddy. But it's our land. Sit. Joshua is camped at the place where he saw God's miracle of crossing. He saw God's hand in provision. They ate from the land at Gilgal. They celebrated Pesach at that time. And they were able to enjoy the fruits of it. And He doesn't move. This is a place of covenant. This is a place of God establishing. And He stays there while they're still establishing the borders. Something we read over, but I think it's something very profound. And Caleb, the son of Yephaniah, the Kenizi, said to him, stop right there. Judah means praise. Joshua, Yah will save. Gilgal, round. Caleb, Wufi. Okay, when you go to Israel and they go, Boker Tov Caleb, they're not talking to you, they're talking to the doggies. But it's called a Caleb because it means something more. What does it mean? Anybody?
Close to the heart, isn't it?
Close to the heart. What does Caleb mean? Pastor speakers first. Shoni was focusing on the Kenizzite.
Vincent, I realized the name Caleb that it doesn't just mean dog, it means biting dog. It means to bite and hold on, which speaks of a great deal of loyalty and tenacity.
But Lev means heart, as in Levi. So, what is it about this man that his heart is at the foremost? It means wholehearted, faithful heart. So that loyalty that they speak of, that can only be coming from a dog who will love you regardless, fully. And you will remember the mitzvah, you will follow your God wholeheartedly, with all your heart. Follow Him like Caleb. Interesting illustration. Okay?
Like a jog of the bush dog.
Yeah, literally, life and limb for everything, right? Just to keep you safe. So out of Judah, praise, God will save through a covenant, the wholehearted. Son of Yephaniah. Yephaniah? Come on, children. He that beholds. Okay? So he that beholds the covenant.
Yes, the covenant.
Okay? So he's going through this process. Yephaniah the Kenizi. Now, what do we know about these Kenizi? They're not Israelites. Where do you get that from? Huh? Right. All these scriptures that you're going to come back, you're going to have to go to Genesis 15 verse 19, and they mentioned in Numbers 32, but the earliest reference we have again is Genesis 15. Now in your English Bible, sometimes they spell them differently. In the Hebrew it's the same. Okay? Kenizites, they might spell it with one N and two Z's, and sometimes two N's and two Z's, and in the Hebrew it's the same. Okay? So he's talking about a specific people of the land, in the promised land. But somehow Caleb ends up in Egypt, and he leaves with them, and somehow when they come to Mount Sinai, they say, remember, Judah went out first. Caleb was not the one leading the band, but he comes up here again as one of the spies, and he comes up here and he's standing up for Judah, the Mashiach's tribe, a Gentile, who saw God at work, like Ruth, like Rahab, and says, here I am. Remember, him and Joshua go way back, right? And if we go back to the stories of what you know about Caleb, 12 spies, 2 with the good reports, we know Caleb was 1. God can do this. But it says when they went out to spy the land, and it talks about them, and it says, and he went to Hebron. Because of this portion and others, you will make the illusion that the land Caleb gets given is because he was the one who went to Hebron. They went out to go and spy out the land, and Moses told them, go check out the fortifications, go check out the crops, go check out the people. One person out of all the 12 spies turns and he runs straight to the patriarch's tomb and he goes, you won't believe what's going on. He's not, listen, Hebron, not much going on in that time. It was always occupied. Later it picked up a lot of sort of authority in the time of David. Remember, David ruled there for 7 years before Israel, the northern kingdom, came and chose him, and then he reigned for 40 years. So 7 years at Hebron, 33 years with them, total of 40 years of reigning. And it all comes out of Hebron, Hebron, Hebron. And Caleb runs straight to Hebron, if we understand it correctly, and he goes up and he spends time at the patriarch's tomb. You know, in my heart, when we sat there, Nick and I went there, we went on a bit of recon. I won't take a tour there. It's a bit rough, you see. So we asked Manny, our guy who hooks up our tours, and he sorts out all the stuff, and we said, Manny, we want to go to Hebron. There's only 2 of us. What do you recommend? So Manny, being the nice guy that he is, says, I'll come with you. Nearly gets us arrested, but he came with us. It was a fun experience. Get in there, don't go to Hebron on a Shabbat, unless you're a Jew, you're not allowed. The only reason we got in, that's it. Get stopped by security, he says we're Christians, they go no. He says, okay, no, don't worry, you guys carry on, don't worry, they're Jews. When you do that to the IDF, they get a little bit suspicious. Change your story in front of them when you tell them no. And eventually I picked up what the guy was saying, and I said, well, look, I'm wearing tzitzit, what do you think I am? And he said, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see your tzitzit, you can go. So I'm like, chop, let's go.
Is this on Shabbat?
Yeah, we were, yeah, we sat above, and it's a very surreal experience. Knowing that without, and in Israel you have a lot of this could be the place, this could be the place, and there's a handful of places that we know for sure is the place. And we're sitting over there. Hebron has always been occupied, so there has never been any discrepancy about where the tomb of the patriarchs was. So we get in, and they're having Shabbat service, and we think, okay, we're having Shabbat, standing over there with a whole bunch of Orthodox guys, and we get invited into sitting on service, and we're just having a wonderful time. But it was something surreal, sitting there knowing you're sitting above the bones of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, it's literally built on top. So you go to a room and they say, this is the section where the thing is, it's supposed to be above Abraham, and you walk across this about 30 steps, and then this is where Yaakov is put, etc., etc. And then, but you know, it wasn't that way. It's all above the cave. You're sitting over there in the land, and understand this is Nick and I standing over there going, our Messiah came to this people because of a promise made to a man down the bottom here. Genesis 15. He will pay the price when your descendants mark up that covenantal promise. And we're standing over there at that place. And even though Manny was like, okay, we go here. He was doing the tour guide thing, and we're like, Manny, just go stand over there for a second. We're just focusing here. And I don't know, it was because of this portion that got me very excited, but I was sitting over there, and I'm like sitting here just knocking on the side of the stones. And I'm like, we're here because of you. We're in the land, we're standing here. And when you go there, Hebron's a dodgy place. Lots of people that are very grumpy. I've never seen so many armed people, and this is Israel. You see armed people everywhere. But it was literally guy big gun, 10 steps, guy, big gun, 10 steps, guy, big gun, 10 steps, and so it goes. The last 300 or 400 meters towards this place, it looks like something out of a scene in an Iraq movie. And we walk in here, knocking at the patriarch's tomb, and we just had this wonderful moment on Shabbat with God and what was going on there. So it's a very cool thing. But anyway, Caleb goes there and he starts off looking at what was going on here. So he's representing Judah, and we're going to get to Hebron in a bit. He represents him, and then he goes up. And again, the Kenazi referenced as, so he's probably a Gentile that has come in, and now he's the leader or someone representing the tribe of Judah. You know what Adonai told Moshe, the man of God, about me and you in Kadesh Barnea? That's when the spies went up. I was 40 years old when Moshe, the servant of Adonai, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to reconnoiter the land. And I brought back to him an honest report. My brothers who went up with me discouraged the people, but I followed Adonai my God completely or wholeheartedly. His name. On that day Moshe swore, surely the land wherever your foot has been will be the inheritance for you and your descendants forever, because you have followed Adonai your God completely. Now look, Adonai has kept me alive these 45 years, as he said he would before the time Adonai said this to Moshe. Stop there. So he's giving you 2 dates. So he went out to spy at the age of 40 years old, and it's been 45 years since then. Now, some guys would say that because the spying of the land went up, he was approximately 38 years old when he came back, etc., etc. Right? I don't know. I see 40 and I see 45. And if we look at the wanderings of 40 years, and he's in the land, he's probably been conquest. The conquest has probably been taken at this point, probably 5 years, and there's still some to go. Okay. So at to the point of Judah's being distributed, we're probably looking at 5 years later being his fulfillment a little bit later, so plus minus probably 7 years. Okay. Let that sink in for a little bit. How many of you have gone through some difficult times and it's lasted longer than 2 weeks? And you feel drained? A month. After a year you start to lose hope, nothing's going to change. 2 years. 3 years. 5 years of blood, sweat and tears. You've got 40 years on that watching people die around you. 45 years to come and ask the question, can I get my land now? Notice he says here, he doesn't say, isn't it about time you give me my land? Isn't it about time you sort out my inheritance? He's like, I've fought alongside these guys. I've been here. God has given me a promise. Is it okay that I can go and collect? And he's going to go out and fight some battles here still. He's 85 years old. All of these moments built him up to get to this place, and he's going to do some crazy things, but it's not about him, it's about his tribe. Joshua, you will cause them to inherit. You will get them home. Caleb, right there by his side the entire time. Let's go. Let's read about the story. When Israel was going through the desert from the time Adonai said to Moshe, when Israel was going through the desert, today I'm 85 years old, but I am as strong today as on the day Moshe sent me. I am as strong now as I was then, whether for war or simply for going here and there. So God has sustained him. Therefore give me this hill, the one Adonai spoke to me about on that day. On that day you heard how the Anakim, they were there with great fortified cities. Perhaps Adonai will be with me and I will drive them out as Adonai said. Joshua blessed him and gave him Hebron. the hill where he walked. Caleb, the son of Yephaniah, to his inheritance. So Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Yephaniah, the Kenizzite, to this day. I find it interesting that Hebron later becomes a Levitical city. Something that's dedicated to God, but it's in his territory. But that's not all. It's all. Because he followed Adonai, the God of Israel, completely. Hebron was formerly known as Kiryat Arba. Kiryat Arba means settlement of four. This Arba is a man, was the greatest man among the Anakim. What is the Anakim?
The tribe of giants.
The giants. If you look at the word Anak, literally means long neck. Okay? So someone who is probably extremely tall. Then the land had rest from war. So he goes up and he specifically gets Hebron awarded to him. Now chapter 15, bear with me. The territory chosen by Lot for the tribe of the descendants of Yehudah, according to their families, extended to the border of Edom, in the Sin desert toward the Negev as far south. So, we've got desert. The southern border began on the far shore of the Dead Sea, from the bay facing southward, and went up from the Scorpion Ascent past toward Sin, went up to Kadesh Barnea past Hetzron, went up to Adar, turned toward Karka, passed towards Atzmon, and went out from the Wadi of Egypt into the border of the ending of the sea. That is your southern border. Your eastern border was the Dead Sea to where the Yarden entered it. The northern border was at the bay of the sea at the end of the Yarden. To the border, he went up to Bet Hogla, passed to Bet Arava. Next to the border, they went up to the stone of Bachon, the son of Rivon. Then the border went up to Dvid, from the Achor Valley, then toward facing Gilgal, that is across from Me'ele Adumim, which is on the south side of the valley, next to the border, passed to Ein Shemesh Spring and went at Ein Rogel. The border went up to Ben Hinnom Valley, to the south side of the Yevusi, that is Yerushalayim. And the border continued to the top of the hill in front of the Hinnom Valley on the west, which is the northernmost end of the Rephaim Valley. From his hilltop, the border went down towards the Nephtoach spring and continued out to the cities on Mount Ephron, next to the border drawn by Baalah, that is Kiryat Yearim. Then the border turned from Baal westward to Mount Seir, passed to the spur of Mount Yeramim, also called Kashalon, on the north, went down to Bet Shemesh and passed Timnah. Next, the border went out toward the side of Ekron, northward, and finally the border was drawn to Sikron, past Mount Baalah, and went to Yavneel, with the border ending at the sea. As for the western border, the Great Sea was its border. These were the borders of the territory of the descendants of Yehudah by clans. Right. I want you guys very quickly. Now let me read the next portion, and I'm going to do that too. To Caleb, the son of Yephaniah, he gave this portion with the descendants of Yehudah, as Adonai had ordered. Yehoshua named Kiryat Arba. Arba was the father of Anak, of the Anak. Alright, also called Hebron. Why is that important? Where did the Anakim come from? Giants in the land, where did they come from? They just grew them big up in Canaanite territory? From Nephilim, right? So what does that tell you about the territory? You guys all know Nephilim? Right. Right? Nephilim, giants. These giants still in the land. Survive, or are they offspring of later from Noah, past Noah's time? Is Canaan a good, well, let's use today's technology or terms, a good Christian place where all people will go and be peaceful? No? Nice kosher town for the Jews? No. If there is Nephilim, you generally have an inkling there's something unkosher about it, correct? Right. Why in Hebron? Why was the man who was the greatest of the Anakim settled? It was his settlement, Hebron.
Because Abraham purchased that territory for Sarah's grave.
Right, but why would he have bought it, or would Arba wasn't mentioned when he was doing his negotiations, yes? So that must have happened after. Now if that happened after, why would Arba, if this is some sort of, let's call it what it is, some really strange demonic activity going on here, come in and take Hebron for himself? Is it?
Because it was one of the crushing, it could be a crushing place. It could be a place where if the Jews couldn't get to it, he could break the faith because he would destroy the line of the patriarchs.
Isn't
I
it?
didn't say it very well.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, right? If you can shut them off from Abraham, you take away a covenant. You take away covenant, you take away inheritance. You take away hope. And this guy, or in Hasatan Zadia, again, goes to the point and goes, all right, well, this is a good place to start. And he's not just one Anakim, he's the father of them, the greatest of them all. Kiryat Arba, the settlement of this man, this thing. And he establishes himself in Hebron. In my mind, the lines are drawn. Little old Caleb and the descendants of giants. The greatest giants. Remember, Goliath and them came. These were slightly watered down versions compared to this guy. Right. So let's see what happens. Caleb expelled their 3 descendants of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, children of Anak. So old Caleb doesn't take on one giant, and we go, David, you biscuit. He takes on 3. And he's like 44 times David's age. Listen to what happens next. From there he went up to fight the inhabitants of Debir. Debir was formerly called Kiryat Sefer. Caleb said to whoever overpowers Kiryat Sefer and captures it, I will give my daughter Achsah as his wife. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's brother, captured it, so that he gave him Achsah, his daughter, as his wife. After becoming his wife, she persuaded him to ask his father to give them a field. Then she got off her donkey. Caleb asked her, what do you want? She said to him, give me a blessing. Since you have given me land in the Negev, also give me sources of water. So Caleb gave it to the upper springs and the lower springs. Isn't it funny that when a man leads and he takes on giants, how quickly the next generation see it's possible, stick up their hand and go, I'll take that place next. There is a belief that happens here. Yeah?
But at this time, wasn't it in Torah that you're not allowed marrying your cousin?
Not your cousin, your sister.
But wasn't it?
Remember, it doesn't say exactly which relations it was,
generation.
because there was also other things that were going on. You had more than one wife, concubines, etc., etc. Yes, we don't ask questions, we smile. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Yehudah by clan, the cities of the outer part of the tribe of Yehudah towards the borders. Now very quickly, do me a favor, scan over all those cities and tally them up and tell me what you see. Tell me how many cities there are. They list them and then he'll tell you there's a number. And then he lists them and he'll tell you a number. Add up the numbers and get to a number and tell me what that number is.
Can we guess 50?
No.
Last time.
70.
No.
59.
No. This is not lots of numbers. There was 29 and then you look at the next list. It will be 29 plus something, plus something, plus something, plus something.
It's a lot, okay?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Add them numbers.
Lots.
Lots.
The best we can get.
If I got it all right, round up 94.
Nope. A little bit more. But you're close.
Because I've missed a couple.
Yes. All right. So 29 plus 14 plus 16 plus 9 plus 9 plus 10 plus 6 plus 6 Brings you to a grand total of 99. 99 cities that was part of the inheritance, but one is not listed there that was given already. Jerusalem. Jerusalem was not yet captured. So, if I'm seeing this right, please correct me if you disagree. Out of the inheritance you have 99 plus 1. Plus Jerusalem. Put them together, you have 100. 100 is a multiple of? Oh, isn't that a twinkie thing? Isn't it funny that a Gentile man inherits the territory that comes in, that establishes or sets up the next covenant for a guy by the name of David, the beloved? So a wholehearted man who gives praise to God sets up the beloved to take the throne where God will provide peace. And isn't it funny that Yeshua will also take part of the bride, which is Gentile? For what purpose? He brings you all the way back to Joshua. God will save through the seed to establish His Jubilee. And just to terrorize you one step further, if you look at the first letter in your Bible, it's a bet, which symbolizes a house. The last letter at the end of Revelation is a nun. The house of the seed, and that spells out Ben, which means son. And it's all about inheritance that belongs to you through Him. I know, right? Everything is about establishing His kingdom, but where do you belong with Him? Who are we establishing? The Father establishes the Son so that we can come into that kingdom. Why? Because Yehoshua will say, how are you to follow Him wholeheartedly like Caleb? This again is foreshadows of what Acts is all about, and it is again bringing the two together in Revelation. Are you with me? But Vince, it's not Sunday. I've got notes here I haven't used yet, so I'm just smiling. Alright, any questions, any thoughts? Look deeper. This is one aspect of, again, of looking at things. But at the same time, you could do a breakup of those cities' names and you can tell stories like the kingdoms. I wanted to show you something different today. There's layer upon layer upon layer here. Right. Prayer time is every time. 1 minute over.